Okay, so welcome all who have joined. Welcome to this panel on escaping the Oracle ecosystem. This is a presentation by Martin Biggs from Spinnaker Support and myself, Arjen Hamerling from Schiphol Airport. Yeah, I think we can go to the next slide. Martin, please introduce yourself.
Great. Hey, hi everybody. Welcome this morning, this afternoon, this evening to this discussion. I've been delighted to be invited by ITAM.org to speak with you today. If you're joining a little late, this is recorded, so we can see all the introductions. But good to speak with you today, Arjen, as well.
Well, okay. Yeah, how about your work at Spinnaker Support? Can you tell a bit more what you're doing at Spinnaker?
Yeah, okay, so look, I'm the Vice President, General Manager for Spinnaker Support here in EMEA. We'll talk a little bit more about what we do towards the end of this conversation, but fundamentally, we provide an alternative to the support that Oracle provides, the maintenance, the annual maintenance fee. And it's very hard for people to get their heads around that to start with, because it makes no sense that anyone other than Oracle, we also do SAP, can fix their own software. But we can. We have no relationship with them whatsoever. And part of what we're going to discuss today is that enables a lot of major companies across Europe, Middle East and Africa, and actually to be fair globally, to unlock their relationship with Oracle and then do what they want to do. And some of that might be to stay with Oracle, some of it might be move away. Yeah. But the fact that we are able to break those commercial relationships is very interesting. We'll get into that later. But yeah, this conversation today is fundamentally about how people like yourself, Arjen, other sound professionals are able to unlock the Oracle ecosystem and do what they want to do for their organization and what Oracle wants to do for the organization.
Indeed. Yeah, so introducing myself, I'm Arjen Hamerling, and I'm a Senior Contract Manager at Schiphol Airport. Currently, I'm responsible for all the software contracts of Schiphol Airport. And next to that, I'm responsible for the licensing service providers contracts, the reseller contract. And as a secondary role, I'm also maturing the SAM project within Schiphol. As you said, today's topic is about escaping Oracle's ecosystem with recent events, the COVID issues of last year and the year before. There's a lot of focus on cost reductions. And with cost reductions, mainly OPEX, by the way, we are thinking of reviewing what we use and software, what support levels we have, and how we can lower usage or downgrade IT infrastructure. But when it comes to Oracle, that's often an issue because you have the repricing stuff, that kind of stuff. So as an alternative to as well as technical support and other support, you will be presenting an alternative to Oracle. So I believe you have prepared a presentation. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arjen, and I hope that you'll be interrupting me liberally throughout to ask questions and clarifications and test what I'm saying. I'm also very open to all of the attendees as well. I've got the chat window open, so if you've got any questions about what we're talking about today, please pop it into the chat, and we'll do our best to respond to you in real time. So without further ado, what we want to share is, what is Oracle's strategy here? All of the people joining today, I'm sure, have a relationship with Oracle of some kind. What are they trying to get out of you? What's their future for you? And then I'm going to go into a bit more detail around some of the things Arjen's just been saying around the unnecessary pains, in our view, of Oracle support. So the Oracle Lifecycle Support Policy, the policies underneath that. Arjen just talked about repricing. That's one of the painful items. And then finally, that all leads you to vendor lock-in and not doing for your organization what you want to do. So we're going to cover those. Then I'm going to reflect on what your IT goals are. So as a SAM professional, an IT professional, an architecture leader, what are you trying to achieve for your business? And then how do we look at ways of fixing that? So by we, I don't necessarily mean Spinnaker support. I mean, there are a number of different techniques you can look at. But of course, I will say how third-party support can fundamentally unlock a lot of these issues, and why many major institutions in Europe, Middle East, and Africa are going down this line now. And it is the case of I will sprinkle in, 4 of the top 6 retail banks in the UK, one of the top 4 in South Africa, one of the top 4 in Australia. Danske Bank did a webinar with me earlier on this year. They've all moved key parts of their Oracle technology to us. So this is people who are in a highly regulated industry who care about security and patching as well as making sure they're keeping the lights on both new and older software. And they've all done it because they're looking to transform their organization, not just for the big savings they get. So we'll go into that later, but that's in the future. So I'm going to just talk about Oracle strategy. And look, it's cloud. That is fundamentally the focus of what they want to do now. So if you look at the roadmap of most on-premise technologies that you have today that you're licensed for, and many of you will have perpetual licenses, if you look at the roadmap going forward, a lot of that now is that there is no future expectation on it, and the next step is cloud. There'll be some that are in continuous innovation releases, but when you look under the cover of what that continuous innovation is, there's not too much going on there. And Oracle's been very explicit about its investing in cloud technologies, cloud infrastructure, and the way that the Oracle sales team are focused as well is, almost 100% on cloud-based outcomes. Now, as a SAM or a procurement professional, that's really useful for you to understand if you've got on-premise technologies. And I need to be really explicit up front. I'm really only focused on licensed technology. So as soon as you go into the cloud, there's nothing I can do to help you because everything's all bundled together at that point into a subscription fee. But whilst you're on, you've got your own licenses and the perpetual licenses, and you're paying this annual maintenance fee, there's a lot that we can do to help you, both in terms of unlocking that and in terms of improved service and reduced cost. So cloud, 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 cloud. Now, I don't know what your
does that mean that on-premise stuff will stall in the future, Oracle-wise?
Well, I mean, we're seeing that already. There is a lot of Oracle technology that's gone into what they call sustaining support, and I'm going to come to that in a couple of slides' time about what that means, and just to make sure everyone's really clear on that. But because Oracle does not have a concept of end of life, because they want to take your money at all possible times. But as far as updates, innovation, there's a lot of technologies now that are either slowing down drastically, or there are no planned updates. I mean, there's a lot of PeopleSoft technology now, for example, just pulling one out, where there is nothing planned, but they're not saying they've stopped, and there might be something that comes in 5 years' time, but there hasn't been any really significant updates for the last 3 years. So what is going to happen next? But you're also seeing a lot of development into Oracle Cloud applications, and some of them are excellent and really leverage the value of the cloud. And it's we can see a lot of clients actively trying to move into that environment. But some of it is not a great implementation, frankly, and it's basically a lift and shift of what they've had today in an on-prem, and so it's just changing the payment model. And a lot of people that I'm speaking to are very resistant on going to that move until they see those implementations really leverage the benefit of the cloud. And others have already gone end of life. So there's a whole, we saw in the news earlier on this year around the client experience technologies. A lot of that's being shut down, a lot of people being laid off. And so people who've made that investment moving there are now wondering, what the future of that investment onto those technologies are. So there's the good, the bad, and there's the ugly.
But you mentioned that you do not support it on the cloud, but if you bring your own license, for instance, in the cloud, do you support that, or is that also no option for you to do?
Great point, Arjen, and it's a very, very interesting piece, which will probably I'll talk about now. It is on the next page as well. So where you are licensed and you're using that license to deploy, and you still own it, and you're put on AWS or Azure, then absolutely we can help you. But if you've used bring your own license, that's basically you're now in a SaaS model, but Oracle have allowed you to leverage your existing licenses to leverage that. And no, I can't help you there. And in fact, it's a real problem across everything, because what they've done is they've given you SaaS, but they've mandated that you use Oracle Premier Support as part of that, which is genius, which means then that you have to have Oracle Premier Support on everything. You can't turn it off. So even your old estate or your on-premise estate, or it might be hosted in cloud environments, but it's licensed, that all has to stay on Oracle Premier Support if you've used bring your own license. So there's lots of little things they'll do which look great in theory, but actually it locks you down from doing that. I'll give you a quick story. One of those UK retail banks I talked about, they had, and it's quite true for a lot of industries, there's a lot of technology which is now no longer, I would say, fully supported by Oracle. It's in sustaining support, which means no new security patches. I'll go through it in a bit more detail as well. They had a tiny cloud managed service estate with Oracle that was needed to be moved into Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI. And part of that was Oracle said, right, and the other 90% they wanted to move to us because it was older stuff, but they want to get it fully supported and up and so on, and make a big saving at the same time. But in closing down a data center in Scotland and moving it to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, Oracle very cleverly locked them into the whole estate being on Oracle Premier Support just for 10% of their environment, which, by the way, was not critical to their business either. So they were very, very upset about this. And actually, we managed to work very effectively with partners at IBM and Kyndryl, where they hosted the environment separately, and then we supported it, and they completely break away from Oracle so they could liberate their architecture. So there are tricks which look like presents to start with, which we'll get to on the next page. But I'll just quickly, before moving there, obviously we're aware there is other Oracle Cloud Infrastructure as well. There is compute and database, and things that I would just advise everyone to be clear about, and talk to licensing professionals and cloud professionals, whether it's Gartner and so on, is as you move to the cloud, whilst today you're mainly commercially locked into the Oracle ecosystem on an on-prem basis, once you move to the cloud, do think about your lock-in from a technical perspective. It's true on AWS as far as using all of their environments as well. It's also true in Oracle Cloud implementations. Once you're there, it's very, very hard to not be there anymore if you decide it's not right for you.
So if you choose Oracle, it's usually a long-term plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, IT should be a long-term plan anyway, but it's pretty clear they're not. Openness is not the underpinning what they their strategy. So I will talk about some of those cloud-based incentives in a second. But before, I've talked about sustaining support quite a bit, and I just want people to be clear what that is. And I'm sure most attendees are, but I find there's a lot of people, especially at the CIO level, which are very surprised when they're told that they're paying hundreds of thousands, if not millions of euros or dollars a year on Oracle annual maintenance, to find out that most of their environment is in sustaining support and they're getting very little for that. So Oracle's support lifecycle is as follows. For most main deployments of software, it's in Premier Support for the first 5 years. So that support charge is 22% of your license costs, and then it goes up each year with inflation, which typically has been 2 to 3%, which, by the way, seems to be a little bit above inflation. And of course, we've seen this year that in a lot of jurisdictions, that number's more like 8%, and probably going beyond that. I don't know if you've seen that, Arjen, in your case.
I've seen 8% indeed.
Yeah. And it
probably depends on what region you are, maybe because it was partly due to the dollar in comparison with the euro.
Yes, that's absolutely and I struggle to understand the need for that, because their costs aren't increasing 8%. There's no technology or hardware, and the engineers that I've spoken to, some of whom have joined us, for example, are certainly not getting 8% pay rises. So I'm not quite sure how they justify it, but anyway, that's what happens. So each year it goes up. Then in year 6, it goes into what's called extended support. which is exactly the same as Premier support, only they get to charge you more for that. And they'll justify that on the basis that they're encouraging you to upgrade to the next software version. And so aren't they being very kind by providing you another 3 years of extended support? And then once you've got to the end of that 8 years, two things happen. Firstly, it will go down to what's called sustaining support, which is still pretty much the same price as your Premier support, but now you get no new bug fixes. So if something new is found in the software that doesn't work, then you've got no fix for that. Now that's less likely in a lot of the software. It's very, very stable, but certainly they're not helping you anymore from an interoperability stance. So that's pretty critical. So if there's other parts of infrastructures upgraded, that technology that's sustaining will get no new patches to allow that interoperability to carry on. So your software now is in a situation where it might start breaking if other things in the environment are upgraded. And secondly, and probably most importantly, you get no new security patches. So that's a bit of a nightmare.
So it's only 24/7 help desk, or how do you see that?
Yeah, so you'll get access to engineers, but they'll only fix problems that have been in their knowledge base that have been fixed before. And so that means that most people I speak to are told, yes, I got through to the engineer eventually, and then they told me the answer was to upgrade the software, which frankly is a hugely destructive and impactful project. Sometimes can take, a database case, can take weeks and months. In an EBS case, that can take months to years. It's a non-trivial response to what can be quite a serious issue.
And they probably will offer you the tooling to do that.
Well, so you can't upgrade to necessarily the latest version, depending on where you're starting. You might have to upgrade iteratively until you're onto supported level, then go on to the latest. It's a bit of a mess. Now, what they've realized is that there are a number of deployed technologies, especially around database and e-business suite, which the vast majority of their customers are on, that are now in year 9 or year 10. So they've put together an offering called market-driven support. And market-driven support is usually quite punitive. And although I understand you've had a very, very great offer, so sign that up. But market-driven support isn't just taking extended support for another year. It's a massively scaled back version. So you only get Sev 1 support. If there's a new bug that's found and it's not severity 1, then you're on your own. So it's just the same sustaining support. And as far as security patches is concerned, you'll only get a patch if Oracle thinks it's important enough to do that. So you don't get the quarterly patching regime, which you do for the first 8 years, or whatever, but you get an on-top charge fee. So a couple of examples. There was a telco, a large national European telco I was talking to last year, where they were being charged over $1 million a year on top just to have market-driven support on a subset of databases. And the important thing is it is a subset because you have to be on the exact precise version to be supported. So back when they provided 11G support for a year, it had to be 11.2.0.4. So if you're on any other version, tough luck, mate. You've got to upgrade to be on that version, and then they'll provide you this very limited support. So it's
on top of the regular support and not on top of the extended support.
That's right. Yeah. Yes, and I will just put this advert in for us here. We don't have a concept of being out of support. So there was no such thing as market-driven support. We will support from a vulnerability point of view and a break fix point of view, software regardless of how old it is. We have clients who are on Oracle 8i that was deployed in the 90s, along with customers who are on version 20 and so on today on the innovation releases. So it's an amazing way of extracting more cash from customers. We are currently responding to an RFP for a city council in the UK, and they revealed that the market-driven support charges are 50% on top of their current support charges, which upsets me as a British citizen that taxpayers' money is being spent on completely unnecessary additional charges. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Yeah, but it's maybe an incentive to do some life cycle management as well. But
yeah, well, exactly. No, actually, as you talk about life cycle management, I mean, as I put here on the bullets, If you and we'll talk a little bit on the next page about Oracle's various different policies, but there is no appreciation of shelfware. So if you've said, well, I've now removed half my databases, well, Oracle's going to say, well, that's fine. I'm going to carry on charging you the same. You say, well, that's not fair. I'm not using this. So, okay, terminate your 50% of your licenses, and then there is no guarantee that they're going to halve your support costs. Often there is, in the contract, it says we just will not increase. That's very generous, and we then tend to see people get a 10-20% discount if you remove and terminate your licenses. There are many other options which we'll get to later, but that's I think that's something you've seen as well, Arjen, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Right, let me just talk about some key policies which are related to all of this. So the first one is the common license set policy. So this basically says, and this is very fair, to be fair, based on a product family, you must either be completely on Oracle support and the same level of that Oracle support, which is either extended or whatever, or off. You can't have a mix. So and the product families are database is a product family, middleware, SOA, WebLogic, that's a family. All the Siebel products is a family. PeopleSoft, eBusiness Suite, Endeca, Hyperion and Essbase, that's a product family. So all those that in theory share a common code base, that's a product family. And for that family, if some of that is on, say, sustaining and some of it is on current, you can't say, well, I just only want to pay for the current stuff and ignore the sustaining. The policy is very clear from Oracle, it's all or nothing. And you can't then carve off some and say, oh no, I don't want to pay for that. You have to pay either 100% for that product family or zero. And that's a piece that needs to be understood very clearly. So if you're looking at alternative options to Oracle support, it's an all or nothing approach around a product family. Now there's a second part to that, which is repricing. So if you've ordered more than one product family on a Oracle order, so for example, say, and this happened to us with a South African bank, they had $1 million order, which had 800k USD of database support, 200k USD of middleware support, and they wanted to give us the database support and keep the middleware with Oracle. That's perfectly possible. Different product families, you can do that. So they moved it across, asked Oracle to reprice the 200k, and rough guess, Arjen, how much came back as the new quote?
I think roughly about the same you paid before.
Pretty much, it was 850k. So that 200k had increased fourfold, and so they were left with an 850k charge just for the middleware. So at that point, the bank turned around and went, "This is ridiculous." And thankfully for us, they moved the middleware to us as well, and that was connected to a whole load of customer success Siebel stuff, and that came to us as well. So it was and that was because on one order they'd mixed product families. So you need to be aware of that. We did a big global manufacturer earlier on this year based out of Switzerland who had many orders, and it was a whole load of agile PLM mixed with middleware and database. And in that case, the repricing that Oracle did was far more fair, but it was still, they still increased the charges. It's not pro rata at all. So you've got to be absolutely aware of that. And that often means that you might want to look at alternatives to your database support, but you might be forced into commercially considering other items as well. And
but
then
you won't have indexation in such occasions, because there's an Oracle ruling that if you use less, you can never spend more.
That's exactly right. That's right. That's the one thing they promise, which is so generous. And then finally, you've got the cloud incentives, which we touched on just earlier. And that's a way of saying, okay, so you're paying us a maintenance fee on a regular basis. There are a number of different things that we can do around universal credits. We touched on bring your own license, which basically says you're already paying for this. You've already paid for your license and the maintenance. So you can leverage that for a period of time and move it into a SaaS environment. But now we're going to say to you, as part of that, you have to be on Oracle Premier support, which again, from a common license set point of view, as we talked earlier, means that if you've moved database to database as a service, a few of them, then your entire database estate now has to be on Oracle Premier support until it all moves to the cloud.
Yeah, and not all the features are a match, by the way. So there usually they do a match of you need a particular type of database license that matches something that matches the cloud, and otherwise it's not allowed either. What they do have is a 25% discount, or have, I'm not entirely sure, a 25% discount for on-premise support for every dollar you spend in the cloud.
Yeah, and it sounds very good to start with, but it's the hidden impact of what it does for you is something you need to be very aware of. Another piece they do is around how they help you migrate as well. And this is, so it's basically using Oracle Advanced Services and cloud migration team to say, okay, you've got an environment, say it's e-business suite, and you want to move it onto the Oracle Cloud. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, here's the cost of the professional services to do the migration, but because you're paying for maintenance, we're going to discount that maintenance heavily because you're going to pay for the, and by heavily, I don't mean heavily in the sense that we'll discount heavily, 20, 30% again, that kind of thing. And you can use that as credits against the migration activity. Very, very generous. Now, one thing I would ask everyone to look at if you're entertaining that is what happens if that project lasts more than a year, because often they are planned to last a certain period of time. And as you'll know, your maintenance agreements are annual. So if it says, well, it's a 10-month migration period and it ends up taking 13 months or 14 or 15, what happens to your maintenance charges? Do they say, are they going to waive it because it was their delay and you don't have to pay it in year 2? Or are you going to have to pay that again in year 2 because of their delay? Big question, because it's very interesting that a company is now almost incented, and I'm not saying this is what happens because they want to move people to the cloud as well, but it's not a penalty if they're late because they get a new big fat amount of cash in year 2, which is very profitable as well, even though it's discounted 20, 30% or whatever. And that's actually something, as we've gone through with a lot of clients, they realized that staying on Oracle support as they're moving to Oracle Cloud is actually not the best commercial position to be in necessarily, because even though it's discounted, Oracle's now, if they delay, they get more money, a lot more money. So we're seeing quite a lot of people moving their support to us for a short period of time, which gives them a lot of money in the start with to fund that migration, but also Oracle's now on hook to deliver on time, because if they don't deliver on time, there's no fat cash coming in year 2 or year 3 or however long the project is.
Yeah, and does it depend who causes the delay? Because there are two parties involved. One, you have the technical team within the companies that they serve, so the customer, and they have their own migration team.
Yeah, and so, they'll say, Mr. Customer, it's your fault, it's delayed anyway, so obviously give us the more cash for the maintenance support. And yeah, I think so. We would argue there is a very clear and strong alternative to looking at another way.
Yeah, fortunately, I do not have that negative experience, but yeah, I can imagine that it could happen.
Absolutely. So this is the bit. This slide really demonstrates. Now we've heard about the repricing piece where contracts are locked together and the vendor lock-in. And a lot of our customers were looking for alternatives in their environment. So most Siebel people are looking to go somewhere else. Siebel's, whilst there is on constant innovation, there are very few new customers going onto that platform, and a lot that are leaving, mainly to Salesforce, for example, or it could be to SAP or Sugar CRM or whatever. But if those Siebel contracts are locked in to other things like database and WebLogic, it's very hard to move away. Similarly, on e-business suite, I was talking to a CIO in South Africa a month or so ago who was looking at various different modules, and some parts of the e-business suite modules were going to go to Oracle Cloud. Others, he wanted to move to MS Dynamics and on the financial planning to SAP. But of course, he couldn't because it was commercially locked together. And even if he did move bits around, you'd still be paying 100% to Oracle for their e-business suite piece. And so there's no financial release. So the vendor lock-in is very, very real, depending on how you've commercially bought all of your Oracle software in the first place. And fundamentally, what we do as a third-party support provider is smash that bit right in the middle and allow you to then move in the direction you want to. Even if it's staying with Oracle, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. We're not anti-Oracle. We're just anti the lock-in and anti-Oracle support, because we'll argue we do a lot better. So this is fundamentally it. And as I said, on the database side, a lot of people are looking to vary, to keep some stuff on Oracle database, but look at MS SQL or Postgres and do it as a mix. And we will look at aligning our charges. Not only are we going to drop the charges significantly to start with as well, but then as you migrate off, we can be commercially flexible around that as long as it's predictable, to help you then move to the new environment. What's right for your organization? So two things is, one is you should have an enterprise architecture that's right for you, not what's right for Oracle. And you should be upgrading only because you want new features and functionality, not just because it's out of support, because that concept will go with us.
Yeah, and I see WebLogic, I see Tomcat. That makes me think of Java as well. Do you support that as well?
Java is a little bit problematic. So Java, as it's bundled with eBusiness Suite, absolutely. But as it stands alone, there are various different ways and technologies of addressing that. We have an alignment with a company called Azul. So we don't resell them, but they have a very good solution around Oracle Java as it's licensed separately. And I know a lot of major companies across Europe have been taking that up.
Okay.
Cool. So now back to procurement, SAM professionals. Your goals are, as we just said, architectural freedom. You should be moving workloads to the technology you want, not locked to Oracle's roadmap. Often as an end user, not necessarily as an architect, but certainly as an IT operations user, you're expecting responsive service. Ideally, speaking to someone who understands your environment immediately, not having to go through resolver groups and waiting for escalations to higher. You need immediate response. From a security perspective, you want to make sure that every single part of your software estate is supported and vulnerabilities addressed. And you only upgrade when you want, if you want new functionality, not to get those security updates. There is an argument, and I know the European Union is looking at it at the moment, that sort of talks about if software is provided, those vulnerabilities as are identified, there is an incumbency on the software provider to still provide it no matter how old. Of course, that's not a law yet, but it's something that's being considered and looked at. And finally, you want to have business stability. So the patching up an upgrade cycle is not only costly, but does cause significant business disruption. So again, upgrading for the sake of upgrading. And we talked to a lot of IT departments. In fact, the webinar I did with Danske Bank earlier on this year, they were saying their DBAs used to spend 60-70% of their time doing database upgrades, and now they're focusing on business outcomes rather than just upgrading for the sake of it. And that's a very powerful.
When you do not need new functionality, if you determine for yourself, okay, we are in a stable position, this is how it runs, and this is how it should run in the next foreseeable future, then this is an option.
100%. And a lot of people now are looking at, well, our next step anyway should be cloud. So I'm not going to need anything new significant on-prem or licensed, even if that license sits on the cloud. I'm looking for a PaaS or a SaaS kind of environment. So why would I be wanting to change? And we've got very large enterprises, big brand names we've all heard of, who are running software which has been working now for the last 20 years. Why change it?
Yeah, and if they pay Premier support, they're probably eligible. Well, my English is not that good, but they're probably allowed to install the latest version until they pay Premier support, I presume. Even if they haven't migrated yet.
Yes. So in our case, as an option to you, if you were to move to third-party support, you would be able to, at any point under our support, upgrade to the versions of the software that was available to you at the point that you moved off of Oracle Premier support. But say, for example, on Oracle database, if you move to us now and you're on 12c, we would help you build an archive that allow you to grow up to 19 or 21 as it's come out. But when version 23 comes out next year, if you've moved to us now, you would never be able to get access to version 23. No. You would have to go back. And we'll talk about a few techniques around that in just a second, Arjen, because there are a number of different ways that you could do that. So that's overall goals of a business. So what can you do? So there are four major areas to look at. I mean, the first one, which we always recommend, it's not us. The first three aren't us at all, is license compliance and optimization. There are a lot of things that you can do as an Oracle customer to make sure that you've optimized your license environment. And there are many very good companies that exist globally and here in Europe that will do that. And I certainly have a number of that I could recommend if you ask to. And so that's number one, would always recommend you do that.
And look at your architecture, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. And that's aligned to that. And it'll be things like, what have you installed in VMs? How are you aligning that? Are you making sure that you're not just compliant, but you've done it in the right way to ensure that you're paying the least possible for what you're doing? And of course, that allows you then to negotiate. And I would say Oracle is negotiating more now than ever before and being a little bit more flexible. Up to probably a year or so ago, it would be a straight, no, you've got to pay, this is exactly what it's going to be. I'm seeing a bit of flexibility building in now to Oracle in the way that they're reflecting the fact that businesses are a lot more constrained at the moment than they ever have been over the last, well, since 2008, really. Although it's interesting to reflect, there was a report done by Gartner, I think it was in 2010, that looked at how IT organizations like Oracle, SAP, Microsoft worked with their customers during the financial crisis and how flexible they were. And Oracle was one of the worst. it really didn't step out and said, no, that's how much you owe me, pay the money.
Yeah, now during COVID, I was quite happy with them.
That's good. That's good. So as I say, they seem to be softening a little. Maybe Larry's got too many yachts and fighter jets and he doesn't need any more. I don't know. So so you're going to negotiate now. The other thing, and this is very different in Europe than and the UK than anywhere else in Europe, is that there is a second-hand software market. It's very nascent for Oracle software because of firstly awareness, and secondly around the support that aligns with licensing. So I have nothing to do with licensing. That's completely with Oracle. I'm only talking about software. These guys, these second-hand software brokers, and there's some very good ones in France and Germany that we work with, you are able to sell, if you're in Europe or in the UK, excess licenses through brokers to other users. Now,
if the first usage was in Europe, then you can. But you mostly hear this from Microsoft. You do not hear that very often for Oracle. So does that mean that there's not a big market for Oracle, or people tend to stick with Oracle, maybe for the reasons addressed before?
It's more because of, well, firstly, awareness, but secondly, it's about the commercial lock-in. So if you were an Oracle customer today and you purchase some of these licenses, most Oracle customers have discounts between 65% and 97% off list. And then you pay 22% a year in your support costs. So if you bought a second-hand license from someone else and put it into your environment, and you think about your common support policy, Oracle's not going to go, all right, you can add that in and at the pro rata support rate that you've got today. They'll say to you, well, I don't know how much you got that for, so I'm going to assume it's zero discount. So I'm not going to discount it at all. So I'm going to pay 22% of list price each year going through, which means you might as well bought the license because you'll be paying more than the license cost each year going forward. And that's why it doesn't really work. So as a purchaser, they have to either be on self-support, i.e. not paying for Oracle maintenance, or with a third-party provider. So and some of our customers either are net new and they acquire second-hand software licenses which we support, or we have existing customers who are looking to expand and they are able to acquire from the second-hand software market. Doesn't happen much because it's still very new, but the broker covers all of the legal concerns around this, and it is a business which is growing, and it's something which Gartner talk about quite a lot. They see the second-hand software market being where the third-party software support market was 5 to 8 years ago. So it's they're a little bit behind, but it's definitely a legitimate business model here in Europe and UK.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, as I've been talking about all the way through, of course, the other thing is to seriously look at what third-party software support can do for you. Fundamentally, it's going to be a dramatic change on the day that you stop paying Oracle and the day you start paying us, and how much money. Average is 62% savings. The smaller amount you pay, it'll be more like 50%. If you pay a lot and you're in like 8 figures, then it goes beyond 65% saving and beyond that again. So, and obviously that's mainly because Oracle has a huge amount of fat in those big payments. So, but the immediate savings are very predictable, happen immediately. There's no migration risk, but more importantly, it goes beyond that in terms of all the things we talked about around unlocking your Oracle architecture. So, I know I said this at the beginning, and I just want to be clear what third-party software support is, because having spoken to a lot of CIOs and IT architects last week in Gartner in Barcelona, it's clear that those who understand it get it immediately, but those that don't, it's very hard to believe, because what we're doing doesn't make sense if you think that only Oracle can fix its own software. So I have no relationship with Oracle. I only have amazing engineers who have at least 18 years experience in the industry. Some of them were coders, whatever, but I cannot access the lockdown code in proprietary parts. Areas where you are able to customize the code, absolutely, and we'll use those standards. But what we do is, instead of Oracle fixing the software or providing a way of addressing vulnerabilities in the software, they use patches, we don't, but we do it instead of them. And that is fundamentally the difference. And the difference to get, so if you've got a break fix, something's broken in the software, you call us. We will do the global tax regulatory and compliance updates that often happen annually, as taxes change. So that's mainly if you've got payroll or anything around financials. If you've got general concerns, you don't have access to Oracle support anymore, but you just speak to us and we'll help you talk generally. And because we are very different in our approach, we're focused on stabilizing your environment, not just immediately applying a patch. So a lot of customers find that the amount of times that they raise tickets drops dramatically over what they were doing with Oracle, because we go in and try and fix the issue at source, which sometimes in the software, but sometimes it might be elsewhere in your architecture, and then understand what it is and then fix the issues. And then, as I've been saying all along, security and vulnerability is our biggest strength. It really is the reason why some of the biggest and most regulated industries on the planet are using us. We underpin pensions in 2 of the 4 biggest countries in Europe, biggest economies, shall I say, in Europe. And it's because we are able to demonstrate to them that all vulnerabilities can be sorted in a less intrusive way. And that's not using tools. I need to be very clear. It's not about deploying tools. A lot of these people do not want new tools in their environment. It's about the expertise of the individuals that we have in our organization. So it is that fundamentally, you'll stop paying Oracle, you pay us, we have no relationship with Oracle, and we're going to fix your software and do a better job. Doesn't make sense, but it's true. So
Cool.
That is the end-to-end of what we wanted to share with you today. There is alternatives. There are other options. It's not well understood. I've been very surprised that, as an alternative, Oracle support is not understood. Another piece, and I just want to throw a scenario into you, Arjen. We brought a new customer on board a few weeks back who were on a JD Edwards environment. They're based in the Nordics. Yeah. And but a global company, actually one that a manufacturer that everyone would know. And Oracle wrote to them the next day and said, well, that's very interesting, but you can't do that because matching service level, you've got all these licenses which are still on support, so you need to terminate all the ones that you're turning off maintenance for. And they went, no, we don't. And then the response back was, you do. And then they looked into it further, and it was a part of their organization they divested 5 years ago. So it's a completely different company. They're separately floated on the stock exchange, and they have zero relationship with them now, other than they actually have a similar name in their title. And of course, that means that if you divest, Oracle treats that as an opportunity to relicense. So this new company, we're trying to desperately get in touch with now, and I've just got a contact this morning, because they'll probably be thinking, oh my goodness, I've now got to buy these licenses for this software I'm using that I didn't know I had to, because I've been using them for the last 5 years. And of course, the alternative option is, rather than paying a lot of money to relicense, they could move to third-party support and then relicense through the second-hand software market and make themselves a saving, or at least stay level on unexpected spend. But they don't know they've got that option today. So, and this is true for a lot of people. So we're trying to make sure people are aware that there are always alternatives to what Oracle's telling you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I do have a few questions left, and I also received a few in my mailbox. One of your competitors is in a long time juridical battle with Oracle. You probably know who I refer to. What is the difference between them and Spinnaker?
Yeah, I mean, putting that aside, one of the biggest fundamental differences is our security story, and there's a good reason why all of those retail banks, critical national infrastructure, biggest energy provider in Europe, is using our service. Putting that aside, it's actually a really serious point, because respecting Oracle or SAP's IP is fundamental to what we do. And unfortunately, that company been found guilty under a number of different courts of violating that, and then not addressing the issues and being in contempt of court. So they are back in front of the judge again later on this month. They've been telling people all the charges have been dropped. It's not true. Some charges have been dropped so that they can move from a jury trial to a bench trial. And I would just suggest that you just look at what's going on there. It is a serious point. We were the first in our industry to implement ISO 9001 to demonstrate to our customers, and if needed to the big vendors, that we are respecting their IP at all times. So we don't share archives between customers. The archives aren't ours; they belong to our customers. So we don't have any Oracle IP. We don't have any Oracle software in our environment. It all belongs to our customers. And we don't have access to Oracle support. Of course not. That would be ridiculous. And we don't create solutions for one client and then use it for another. So everything is bespoke for each customer, but we can still do that in a way which is a legitimate business for us, and also a great value to our clients. So yeah, it's a really important point, but respecting Oracle's IP, customers' IP, is fundamental to what we do. And if we ever got to the stage of contracts, is absolutely fundamentally there. We expect our customers to be able to warrant to us that they are correctly licensed, because it's really important that we are not being complicit in allowing you to just download any old Oracle binaries and then we support it, allowing people to flout Oracle's licensing structure. Absolutely not. So it's a legitimate business. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And other point was, other question was, well, in stressful times, companies will often say, well, let's renew as is. We are close to the deadline of renewing support. If you offer your services, or if a company wants to make use of your services, what's the ideal time to start discussing this with you?
This is a great point. Right. So, number one, if you would say our support finishes tomorrow, and I don't want to be upgrading any of the software ever again, I can take on support tomorrow, assuming we've signed a contract. So from a readiness and ready to go, we can bring on people. But actually, there are other things that come into this. So we would normally say, if you're thinking of this as an option, engaging us and others in our industry 6 to 7 months before your renewal date is a really sensible time. And that's so that you can go through all of the thought process required to understand, is this right for our organization? And a lot of that is about, can you convince yourselves from a security point of view, or a break fix, a operational point of view, it's right? Can you convince yourself from a technology roadmap that this is the right thing to do? And we'll absolutely help you and guide you through that. Can you be comfortable that contractually, commercially, you can do this from an Oracle perspective? So there's a lot of
that was my next question.
Yeah. And there are often lots and lots of stakeholders that come out. This is not just a purely IT decision. If it's database, often it's something IT can just decide themselves. But as soon as it's something like a PeopleSoft, e-business suite, anything that's got business applications related to it, suddenly there are a lot of other stakeholders in the organization who want to be involved, because it impacts their business directly. So that can take a long time. That's why we say 6 to 7 weeks. And then as far as the archive is concerned, depending on how big or varied or what your future roadmap is, we only need an archive so that you're able to upgrade. You don't need to deliver a service. It's for your ability to upgrade or change platforms. And that can take between 1 to 3 months. And of course, the contract really should be in place at that point if we're going to help you do it. Otherwise, you're on your own, and we definitely recommend we help you do that. So yeah, ideally, we're contracting 2 to 3 months before your renewal date, and then there's 3 to 4 months before then of discussion.
And does it depend on the product range as well? Do you cover all Oracle products, or is there a selection that you do not cover?
Virtually everything now, software-wise. We don't do hardware, so we have partners like IBM who will do the hardware. And in fact, we have a commercial relationship with IBM where they can resell our services. But from a software point of view, it's virtually everything. There's the odd things where there is very little we can do to fix it, and we'll make that clear on the contract, and you've got to decide if that's going to be an impact to your business. But those things are very, very few and far between. We've recently started doing FlexCube as well. So that's a core banking product, which was acquired by Oracle a number of years back. There are a couple of exceptions. So for example, PeopleSoft Payroll we won't touch. And that's one of the issues which referring to our previous conversation was a problem for others in our industry. So we're not going to touch PeopleSoft Payroll, but otherwise, yeah, it's pretty much everything. And we would recommend that people have a discussion with us, and if there's something we can't, we'll let you know. But yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't think there are any questions in the chat. Those were the questions that I had. Yeah. I would say thank you for your presentation, and for all who joined us, thank you for attending, and feel free to contact us in case you would like to know more on this topic.
Wonderful. Thank you, Arjen, and thank you to everyone who joined, and thank you to itam.org. I really appreciate the time that we've had together, and to share something which you might never have heard of before. As I say, our value is, it's all about our people, expert resources, deliver a high value service. It's 24/7. We're across the globe. We were founded in Denver, major footprint here in Europe, and based out of Australia as well. Yeah, it's all about a flexible lifetime support rather than a restricted lockdown approach. So yeah, thank you for your time, and thank you, Arjen.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. To all that has joined, there will be handouts mailed. This session was recorded as well, so feel free to watch the video again. And thanks, of course, Martin.
Much appreciated. Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Okay. Cheers.